All right, guys, let's try this one more time. Is there sound? Can anybody in the comments give me a yes or no on sound? I'm hoping that fixed the issue here, guys. I definitely apologize for the delay here. All right, I will. Perfect. All right, excellent. Thanks, guys. Thanks for bearing with me here for 10 minutes. Technical difficulties here on my part. Definitely my apologies. All right, let's start back here at the top, guys. Again, it's Tuesday. You know what it is. It's 3. Now it's 3:09. We're ready to get started here for Tuesday's live stream. My audio wasn't working earlier. We were off last week. I didn't do this live stream last week just because of Damar Hamlin's, horrible injury on Monday Night Football. NBC kind of scaled back a lot of the live streams and kind of put the focus on just kind of some reverence for him. But great news that he is now back in Buffalo rehabbing. He was tweeting during Buffalo's win the other day. So excellent news from him. So I'm happy to be back with you guys on that note, and let's go ahead and dive in here. All right, I have CP3, Beal, Middleton, Hero, oh my gosh, and Unicorn KP, I'm assuming, on my team. What's your thoughts on their injuries and when will they come back to play? Ouch. Whew, that's a shame. CP3 and Hero, I think, are probably the least severe of the injuries. I mean, you never know with Paul. He's a bit older. Same thing with Kristaps Porzingis, obviously, but with him, it's a ribs injury, so it's nothing with his, lower body. So I would say that one is probably not going to be too bad. Hero's dealing with, I think, an Achilles after slipping on the floor the other night. So that one is something to keep an eye on. But the fact that he hasn't been hasn't been ruled out for tonight, still questionable, I think is probably a good sign. Beal, I'm a little more concerned with just because he's out for at least the rest of this week. I think estimated return sometime next week potentially. And Middleton is the one that I would be very frightened of just because he sat out the beginning of the season, first 20 or so games, and then, played briefly. And then he's been out for, I think tonight or yesterday was his 12th straight absence. So Middleton, in terms of like panic meter, Middleton would be my highest. The rest of the guys, I don't think too severe until we hear otherwise, but we'll wait and see. Prayers up to you, Arthur, because that's a bad situation with all those guys on your team. Neesmith or Reeves rest of season, it'll be Neesmith for me. Obviously, Reeves is injured right now, supposed to miss the next week and a half to 2 weeks at least. Even so, Neesmith has been playing quite well recently, so it'll be him for me. Let's see here. I have to scroll through all these sound comments here. 20-team Roto League. Should I continue to hold Eason in hopes he would perform for the second half of the season? In a 20-team Roto League, I'm assuming you can probably afford to hold on to Eason, especially because you're gonna have a lot of guys on your team that are that are not going to be on rosters in 12 or 14 team leagues. So yeah, I think you can probably afford to hold them. If you're dealing with a bunch of injuries like Arthur that we had just talked about here, where half your team is on IL, then yeah, obviously drop them for somebody because you need to make it to the playoffs. You need to make it through the second half of the season and try to pick some wins up. I would assume you'd be able to hold them. Levine for Garland in a 10-team 9-cat league. I don't see anything wrong with that. I think obviously with the way Levine has been playing, he's been unbelievably hot right now. So it seems like maybe he has started to hit his stride. And DeMar DeRozan, just got hurt. So yeah, I think that's fine. If you're getting Levine, I think it's a pretty fair trade, pretty fair 1-for-1 trade. Regardless, I lean towards the Levine side, but I don't think it's a bad trade for either side. Manchester United, all right, that's fine. Thoughts on Jared Vanderbilt and his value as a fantasy asset? Vanderbilt is an interesting one. His upside is fairly limited, just because his main value is going to come from rebounds. Obviously, he gets you steals. the field goal percentage is a good thing for him as well. But again, what's the upside here, right? He doesn't shoot threes. He's doesn't get you a ton of assists. He doesn't get you hardly any blocks. Free throw percentage is atrocious. And you can't really, it's hard to ignore those things when he's not getting you, if he was getting you 2 steals a night, that would be one thing. If he was getting you 10 to 12 boards a night, that would be another thing. But the rebounding, the defensive numbers, they're not elite. They're enough to be in the, that 10th round range, which is good enough to be rostered in a 12-team league, but it's nothing you're going to be, jump out of bed for in the morning. Wow, Vanderbilt's playing tonight. He's going to be amazing. So that's my thoughts on him right now. I think with Kelly O out, he can have a little more impact, but it's limited upside with him. You know what he is at this point. Okay, moving down. It's a good segue to Kelly O. Is he still a hold in a 10-team, 9-category league? I think if you can afford to hold him, I think you do. I think he's going to be out for I'm trying to remember. I think it's 3 games, if I remember correctly. Let me take a look here and see what the 4 games. It looks like it's expected to miss at least 4 games. If again, this is another one. If you can afford to hold him, absolutely hold him in a 10-team league. There may be some great options on your waiver wire right now, but it just depends on your team situation and what you're going to need this week. But yeah, I would still recommend holding him if you're able to. Same question for Melton. Absolutely for Melton. Yeah, that's no hesitation there on Melton. Again, I know Maxey's back. I know Harden's back. But Melton, especially, when Embiid sits and just in general, he's a great defender. They're going to continue to keep him out there. And he's going to continue to be a viable option for you in fantasy. Best option as a silly season hero to stash now. Yeah, I think we had this question a couple weeks ago, right? A guy that I had mentioned who I think is, started to play really well recently and get some more opportunities. Romeo Langford is a guy that I had mentioned a couple weeks ago. It seems like Josh Richardson is actually the better option between the two. He's been playing a lot better, even off the bench. So, silly season may have already started in San Antonio. Vassal's out for the foreseeable future. Keldon Johnson's out right now. They're heading for the lottery. They were heading for the lottery anyway. Jakob Poeltl may be on the trading block here coming up here soon. So I think Richardson and Langford are guys that I like. I'm still all in on Tari Eason. I really, really like Tari Eason for the end of the season. I just want to see what Houston decides to do. I can't see Eric Gordon remaining on that roster through the rest of the season. I can't see them not at least giving Tari Eason some minutes towards the end of the season. So that's another guy that I'm, really fond of. So those are the guys that I'll go with for right now. Thoughts on Warren with KD out for a month? Yeah, TJ Warren to me right now is your top fantasy ad, right? So Brooklyn is going to kind of KD leaves a tremendous, massive void in Brooklyn's lineup, right? So it's going to be some sort of combination of Warren, Joe Harris, Seth Curry, Yuta Watanabe. It's going to be some combination of these guys stepping in. Obviously Warren has the highest ceiling, not just because of what he did as Bubble Boy, but because of some flashes we've seen from him throughout the years, even earlier this season. Is he going to get back to bubble TJ Warren? No, I doubt it. He's also playing alongside Kyrie Irving. This is a different team, than what he's done for the Pacers and what he's done for the Suns. But I really do expect him to take on a much bigger role and be productive for fantasy for as long as KD is going to be out. You think Embiid plays today? Oh, man. Gut, no. I think they'll hold him out at least one more game. So it's another night of streaming Trez and maybe even taking a chance on B-Ball Paul, who's looked pretty good as well. 20 team head-to-head 2-center league. Trade Gobert and Sohan for Orange Julius Randle. Yeah, like the nickname and totally fine with me in a 2-center league. If you want to, upgrade to Julius Randle, which is something I didn't think I'd be saying this year, that Randle's an upgrade to Gobert, but Randle has just been on an absolute tear recently. I think some of that scoring comes down when Barrett eventually makes his way back. But I mean, even with Brunson absolutely balling out recently, Randle has continued to score at a pretty high clip. Rebounding numbers are off the charts. He's shooting threes very well. So yeah, I'm totally fine with that move. Although I do like Sohan rest of season, especially if Pirtle ends up getting traded. Was offered by Banchero for my Scotty and Maxey in a dynasty league. Do I accept? I actually think I had this question on Twitter recently, and I said no, just because I think Banchero is the best player out of this trio. But I think this is a little too rich, right? Like Tyrese Maxey is still an elite fantasy, especially in dynasty leagues. He's very young. So is Scotty Barnes, reigning rookie of the year. Barnes has taken a little bit of a step back this year, which maybe accounts for some hesitation here and maybe people willing to trade him away. But no, I think this is too rich for me. Barnes and Maxey for Banchero. I would hang on to Barnes and Maxey, to be honest with you. Is LaVine a sell high as soon as possible to go for Jaylen Brown? Not necessarily. I think if you can trade LaVine for Jaylen Brown, I think, yeah, I would make that move for sure in just a 1-for-1. But I don't necessarily think LaVine is a sell high right now unless you're getting, somebody that's like a top 15 or 20 guy, because I do think LaVine is going to continue to, ascend, with DeMar DeRozan potentially missing a little bit of time. And especially LaVine, he started the season really poorly. He had some really bad games mixed in there. But now that he's starting to find his stride, he's doing what we expected him to do at the beginning of the season. So this may just be him finally, like I said, hitting that stride. Any NBA trade rumors? I wish. There's not a whole lot that's been buzzing around that I know of right now. Where do you think Jalen Williams will be a starter for OKC come All-Star break? What do you think his floor ceiling is this season and beyond? Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think Jalen Williams will. If I had to guess, I think Williams will be a starter for the rest of the season for them. Especially since they know what they have with SGA, they know what they have with Giddey. If they do end up shutting any of these guys down, I think it will be those kind of franchise cornerstone players, which I don't think Williams is at that level right now, obviously. But Williams has proven that he can be a regular contributor for them. He should be in their long-term plans to be a regular starter for them. So I do think he starts rest of the season for them. And especially, I'm not so sure that they do end up shutting things down. Oklahoma City has been very competitive this year. Their offense has taken a major step with SGA. Balling out like he has. He's going to make his first All-Star team this year, may even start. I don't think he will start, but he will certainly be a reserve. He's a lock for the All-Star game. So I think Oklahoma City plays the season out and tries to kind of, maybe get things going with this group and build some chemistry. Again, this is a gut feeling. They may end up tanking. They may end up resting guys, but that's a gut feeling. They've played really well this season. Avdia or Hachimura. I like Avdia better just because I know Rui's been kind of hot on offense recently, but he has a very limited skill set. And when he's not just absolutely on fire from an efficiency standpoint, he just doesn't offer you a whole lot. So it's Avdia for me. Both are fine to pick up, especially with, as we mentioned, KP's injured. Daniel Gafford is now unfortunately injured after he really started to turn the corner, which I feel like we say that about him every year. He balls out, he gets hurt, rinse and repeat. So yeah, both of these guys are fine. Is Fultz worth holding now? You bet your butt, absolutely. Eason or Najee Marshall? Yeah, as we mentioned, Eason is a great hold for me. I really like him. He's a luxury hold at this point, though, just because the minutes aren't there. Najee Marshall is getting a ton of playing time. There's some things that aren't great with Marshall. There's some turnovers. There's some efficiency issues with Marshall, but just the all-around skill set, the minutes, injuries in New Orleans. Herb Jones banged up. Now to go along with Ingram and Zion. So Marshall is going to continue to see some heavy minutes, I believe. So it's going to be him for me. Quentin Grimes or Kyle Anderson for next week. My gut is to lean towards slow-mo, but I do want to check out what the schedules are for these guys. So I will pull up the schedule real quick here. I'm just curious how they're looking. So bear with me a second. Unfortunately, I don't have all the schedules memorized here. So it looks like for next week, New York plays 4 games, and Minnesota also playing 4 games. So you're not going to get any sort of advantage there. I think I'm going with Kyle Anderson, though. I really like Quentin Grimes, but with Jalen Brunson healthy, with RJ Barrett expected to return soon, I think he loses a little bit of some of that luster that he's had. So give me slow-mo. Quickly, a clear drop with RJ back. No, not a clear drop. Hold him, until we see RJ is consistently out there and healthy, and that Quickly's role doesn't completely diminish. But yeah, he may end up being a drop, but he's not a clear drop, right off the bat. Will the NBA regret seemingly soft punishment on Killian Hayes' rabbit punch to Wagner's dome? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if he goes out there and severely injures a guy, maybe they will. Otherwise, I don't know what the long-term repercussions of the quote-unquote soft punishment here. I thought I was expecting a lot lengthier of a suspension, or maybe even him not playing the rest of the year after he kind of looked like he knocked him out cold, right? But I don't really see what the long-term repercussions of that are. Best pickup for tonight or tomorrow back-to-back, Dwayne Washington or Beef Stew. If Beef Stew's available, pick up Beef Stew. I mean, Detroit's front court is down to nobody. I mean, I'm waiting to get the call from the Pistons to fly out there and jump in there. They got nobody right now. They got Duran out. They got Uncle Bogey is out. They got Isaiah Livers may be back tonight, but he's, as far as I know, questionable. They're down to Marvin Bagley, obviously still injured. So they're down to about nobody. So yeah, it's Beef Stew or bust. And I'm trying to remember who the Pistons are playing tonight. Oh, it's Philly, right? So and that's especially good news if Joel Embiid ends up sitting out. So with that said, if Embiid sits, yeah, Beef Stew is the move. But I also really like Trez tonight against the really shorthanded Pistons front court. Should I start Kessler now that Lunch Lady is out? Absolutely, yeah. Even when it was, Lunch Lady land, you could still be starting Kessler. Kessler's been a top, 80 guy here over the last month. He's still racking up blocks. But, yeah, he's going to be even better now. Please rank them. Najee, Joshi, Trey, E. I think for me, it's going to be – actually, you have them in the right order for me. No, You know what? No, I'll flip them. I'll flip Josh Richardson to number one here, then Najee, then Trey. Trey's fallen off a little bit recently. I think Richardson, if he continues to see big minutes, he's been getting. We usually associate him with scoring here, but he's been doing scoring. He's been getting teammates involved. He's been playing good on defense. Getting defensive numbers up, hitting threes. So for me, it's Richardson, Marshall, Trey. Kessler or Gafford rest of season? It's Kessler, man. I hate to say it, but just this latest injury to Gafford is just showing that he's injury prone. So we can't count on him. I think Kessler is a more sure bet. I think he sees some more run as the season continues to go on. We're already seeing his minutes trending up. So it's going to be Kessler for me, especially with that, with the big block upside. They both have it, but I like Kessler a bit more. Will quickly still have a valuable role once Barrett returns. Again, this is why you wait and see on injury replacement guys, just because we don't know yet, right? We don't know. Quickly has been excellent, but we don't know what Thibodeau's rotation is going to look like once RJ Barrett returns. So hold on to Quickly. Give him 2 games with Barrett back in the lineup. If it looks like he's, back to bench city and playing 15 minutes and not doing anything for you, you can cut him. But I don't think that's the case. If I had to guess, I think Quickly still has a valuable role. I think he's played too well not to have a valuable role, even if it's off the bench. Last time CP3 missed a month and was considered day-to-day. That's right. Will the same thing happen to him this time? I don't know. I don't know the severity of his injury, compared to the last time he sat out for a long time. I don't think it's quite as severe. I also don't think Phoenix can afford for him to miss a bunch of time because they are falling down the Western Conference standings in a hurry. And, if they don't start picking up some wins with Booker out, they're gonna be probably looking at a play-in tournament to get into the playoffs, and that's not where they want to be. Odds that Tyrese Halliburton is a future MVP. Ooh, man. I think he will be a perennial all-star. The odds that he becomes a future MVP, I don't necessarily think that will end up happening, just because I think and obviously we've seen him score. We saw him hit 10 threes. We saw him just absolutely dominate at stretches throughout the season, but he is a true point guard. He is going to get teammates involved. He's going to get assist numbers, and that's what we're going to know him. I think that's what he's going to become known for more than his scoring ability. And I think, I think just in general, an MVP is typically somebody that scores a lot, somebody that's really gifted offensively, which he is, but that's not his primary focus. So do I think he will ever be MVP? I think the chances of that are unlikely, especially because of the time he's playing in as well. He's playing next to Luka. He's playing next to Giannis. He's playing next to Embiid and Jokic. Even guys like Booker, Donovan Mitchell. Do I think he's going to, do I think he would become MVP over those guys? No. Do I think he will become an Eastern Conference starter in the All-Star game? Potentially. I think he's a lock to make it as a reserve this year. Does your crystal ball show the impact on Fultz's value with Suggs and Cole Anthony? What's the best combo of these two for Orlando? No, I don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately. If I had a crystal ball, there would be a lot of things I would do with it other than making basketball predictions. If I had to guess, I would say obviously Fultz is going to be the guy that is, that is going to be around and have the longest staying power here. Between Suggs and Cole Anthony, Anthony is more of a score-first guard. So I think Suggs, especially for his defensive abilities. So I think it's Fultz and Suggs. If I had to guess, again, those are the two that I think make the most impact and would fit the best alongside each other. Let's see. I was offered Sabonis and Brunson for Jokic. My first pick in the draft. I sit second place, 8 games out of first. My other centers are Wood, Gobert, and Plumlee. Wow, in a 9-cat league. So you were offered Sabonis and Brunson for Jokic. Okay, so this doesn't include, you weren't offered him for Jokic and your pick. You're just saying that Jokic was your first pick in the draft. Just to get, okay, got it. Sabonis and Brunson for Jokic. Man. Oh, that's so tough. Just because Jokic can give you, obviously we've seen it. He can give you 40, 20, and 10 on any given night. Sabonis can't get there. Brunson is scoring at a high level now. Yeah, I think if you are in need of some more depth on your roster, I don't think it's a horrible deal. I know I'll probably get some flack here for saying that Jokic could be traded, but I mean, you're trading him for another passing big man, right? So you're actually doing better in rebounds by getting Sabonis. Scoring, you're going to get a boost here in scoring, obviously. With the assists, Jokic averages nearly 10 a game, but Sabonis is averaging almost 7. Brunson is averaging 6 or 7 a game. You're getting a boost there. Yeah, so I think this is now. You also have to look at the fact that if you have Jokic, you can also use the spot that you would use for Sabonis and Brunson on a streamer, right? So I think this move is fine, especially if your roster is a little weaker towards the middle or the bottom. But otherwise, obviously, Jokic is going to be the best player in this deal. Is Dylan Brooks a hold? I don't think so. He's just a scorer and an inefficient scorer at that. Would I swap Beef Stew in for Gafford? Sure. Yeah, I think Beef Stew's going to have a good game tonight, Isaiah Stewart. Who is the best short-term value with Pat Bev joining the Lakers? Hospital squad. That's right. None. Juan Toscano or Christie. I lean towards Christie. I don't think JTA, even though he is somebody that has always been the Juan, for me, I don't think he's going to be the Juan for your fantasy squad. I love the guy, but no, he's a fantasy favorite of mine. He always will be. But no, he hasn't been doing much except for maybe getting you a steal and a block here and there. None is very up and down. I really like Christie. I think he can have some. I think he had 14 points last night, 14 or 15, if I remember correctly. Started. Had a pretty good game. Pull the numbers up here real quick. Yeah, 26 minutes. He had 14 points on 6 of 8 shooting, a couple of triples, 3 rebounds, and an assist. I really like that from Christie, and I think he can continue to succeed. But none of these guys are particularly appealing. If you can get Dennis Schroeder, get Dennis Schroeder. But Christie is going to be the guy out of this group for me. Me and Sloppy Joe got married, got 6 kids, and we're doing just fine. Yeah, man. I'm glad you got the reference here because my wife is probably the biggest Adam Sandler fan I know, and that's exactly what I think about whenever I hear that lunch lady is Chris Farley dancing around in the hairnet and Adam Sandler just going to town singing Lunch Lady Land. So yeah, appreciate the reference, man. Love it. Anyone standing out as being in position to be the RJ Hampton or Josh Christopher end of season MVP? That's a great question. This gets into that silly season hero type of talk. I still am really in on Richardson and Langford. I really do enjoy Tari Eason. He's a guy that was somebody that I liked in the preseason. I still think he can have a big impact at the end of the season. If we look at other guys that are having an impact on bottom tier teams. I think Killian Hayes can, and obviously he's had a good run so far, but I think maybe even if injuries persist in Detroit, I think Sadiq Bey can maybe surprise some people at the end of the season after the terrible start that he's had. If we're looking at some other bottom tier teams, Mark Williams in Charlotte is a guy that, I'm interested in. Maybe Avdia in Washington, especially if injuries continue for KP and Gafford, maybe Kyle Kuzma gets moved, something to that effect. Yeah, those are some of the guys that I'm looking at there. Grab Poku in deeper leagues in hope of silly season heroics, or leave it be? I would leave it be. I think he's not slated to even come back until March. And honestly, with the injuries that Oklahoma City has dealt with, especially with Chet, another tall and kind of lanky and frail big man, I don't know that they're going to rush Poku back. I don't know at that point in the season if it's going to matter for them either. Rubio as a hold? No, I don't believe so. Please rank Lance Jr., Depot, Josh Rich. Thanks, Zach. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you too, my friend. Yeah, it'll be Richardson, Depot, and Lance, which is Larry Nance. Depot is, if you would tell me right now that Depot is going to have 25 to 30 minutes every night, it would be Depot, and it wouldn't even be close, right? If you're going to tell me he's not missing any games, he's going to play a solid role. Kyle Lowry's going to miss time. Tyler Hero's going to miss time. Jimmy Buckets is going to continue, which I think Jimmy Buckets will sit some games still. But if you're going to tell me that Depot's going to have a consistent role day in, day out, not get hurt, it's Depot, and it's not even close, right? Just because he looks like he's a good percentage of the Depot that we loved in Indiana. But I don't think we can count on that, obviously. So Josh Richardson for me, then Depot, then Lance. Even though Lance was really good at the beginning of the season, he just hasn't looked the same since returning. But he'll certainly be better than what he's been recently, better than shooting 22% like he has over the last couple of weeks. Kind of hit this one earlier. Can you talk about Warren value with KD shelved for a bit? Yeah, Warren, obviously the Nets are going to be missing a strong source of offense, which is Warren's bread and butter is scoring. So I think he can step in and be a primary scoring option for the Nets. They're going to need somebody to do that. Seth Curry can do that. Joe Harris he's a spot up shooter. I mean, he's not anybody that's going to be a phenomenal offensive, go out and get it, go out and get a bucket type of guy. But TJ Warren can be that guy. And I think he can do enough, in the other categories. It's not going to be pretty, but he can do enough across other categories to, make him a pretty solid fantasy guy over the next month while KD is out. And, KD's expected to be out a month, which puts him, February 9th, February 10th area. And the All-Star weekend is the 17th through the 19th. Don't be surprised if KD ends up sitting out those extra 2 weeks, unless the Nets are in a really, really bad way and are desperate to get into the playoffs. I don't see why they wouldn't just hold him out through the All-Star break. Robert Williams is still on my waiver wire. Does he need to get picked up in a 10 team? I have already Embiid, Triple J, Portis, Allen, and Brolo as my centers. It sounds like you're set at center, but I would have to guess that, right? I mean, this is 10-team league problems, right? This is first world problems here. I would have to guess that there's somebody on your team that you could cut to make way for Robert Williams. He, even in limited minutes, he's been pretty solid. Okay. Moving down here. Got time for just a couple more questions. Would you trade away Halliburton and Brunson for LaMelo and Paul George? Wow. The team is currently Halliburton, Luka, Trey, Kristaps, Lowry, Jaren Jackson, Garland, Brunson, Westbrook. No, I would hang on to Halliburton and Brunson. I think that's a fair trade. I don't see the problem with that trade at all, but I have some legitimate concerns about the health of Paul George, and obviously LaMelo's already missed time. So Halliburton and Brunson side for me. Brunson a sell high or just grab the popcorn? Everybody's a sell high in my opinion. I mean, everybody except for Jokic, Luka, Jan. I mean, guys like that, I think pretty much, and even those guys, right? Those guys can still be a sell high. We talked about trading Jokic for Sabonis and Brunson earlier in the stream. So I think just about everybody has their price, right? If you can get a great deal for somebody, get a great deal for somebody. Tomorrow updated report he's questionable for Wednesday. Wow, that's excellent. That's great news. Now it doesn't mean that he's necessarily going to play, but that is awesome news for him. And yeah, other guys in the chat here just saying that, go ahead and grab Robert Williams. Too many centers. Grab him and offer a solid 2-for-1 trade for an upgraded center. Yeah, and I think that's a great point too. If you have too many of one position, obviously there's a good opportunity for you to consolidate. Take a couple of those guys and trade them to a team that's in need of rebounds, blocks, field goal percentage, all the things that an elite center will get you, and try to upgrade a guard. When should we actually start thinking about shutdown stuff? I don't think it's ever, necessarily too early, but you also don't want to make decisions in January. I mean, you could think about it now. You can maybe plan ahead and say, hey, maybe this is what I'll do around All-Star time. But in January, you're not going to be making significant earth-shattering moves, for guys that may or may not play in February and March. So, don't get cute with it. Yeah, I can drop Trey Murphy for Robert Williams III. Absolutely, man. You make that move right now. Don't even turn this stream off and go make that move now. Don't even continue watching this right now. Go make that move before you do anything else. Zax. I like that name, Zax. Would you trade Bradley Beal when he returns? He's always hurt. If so, who would you trade him for? These are always tough, man. Like I always have a hard time with these. Like, who would you expect to get in a trade? This is all dependent on your league, right? So this is the problem with injured guys and guys that are underperforming is, would you trade them? Yes, if you can get fair value, but do I think you'll get fair value for Bradley Beal? No, I think somebody is probably going to try to lowball you based on that baked-in injury risk. So unless you can package him with somebody, I don't see you being able to get fair value for him, unfortunately. All right. And we got time for one more question here before I got to jump off. How far of a hit are you willing to take in a dynasty to move an elite vet, think LeBron, Vooch, etc., before reaching the point where it is too little to not just keep them? So again, we'll read this question one more time just to make sure I understand it correctly. How far of a hit are you willing to take in a dynasty to move an elite vet before reaching the point where it's too little to not just keep them? I be honest with you, if you're not competing for first place in a dynasty league, you always want to win now. There's a point where you can be a total rebuild and stock up on picks and stock up on young players. But obviously, the more you continue to do that, there's a lot of NBA franchises, like the Thunder. We've seen them take a step this year with stockpile players and picks, but they're still not winning, right? So you want to go for this year. If you can win right now, Vooch, LeBron, those are guys that are going to help you win now over, say, long-term guys such as even the elite of the elite young guys such as Paolo, Jabari Smith, Cade Cunningham, guys like that. So you always want to win now. If you're not competing for first place, if you have no legitimate shot to compete for first place this year, there's no moves you can make to do so, then I think you always got to be willing to take that risk. If I'm not competing for first, then I'm willing to drop all the way to the bottom and make something happen. If you're not first, you're last. I'll quote Ricky Bobby here for a dynasty league because I really believe that's true. If you're not competing right now, make the move and acquire some younger legs, acquire some picks, and start from the beginning. I think that's totally fine. And that doesn't mean gut your entire roster, right? So if you trade Vooch, chances are you still have a good roster around you. But if you trade Vooch, trade him for a haul. Trade him to a guy that's second and needs to get up to first. Trade him to a guy that's in third and, just a few points out of first. Do something like that and make sure you're getting fair value. Thanks so much. You're awesome. Hope you and the wife girls have a great rest of your day ahead. I appreciate that, man. Actually, I got 4 kids. So I got 2 girls, 2 boys. And, we're planning on having a great rest of the evening. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I think this is the last question here for the day. As always, thanks so much, guys, for tuning in. I greatly, greatly appreciate you jumping on and hanging out with me here. If I didn't get to your question, if there's something I missed, please hit me up on Twitter at Zach the Monster. I'll display that here on the screen real quick. Shoot me a DM. I try to answer as many of these as I can. Otherwise, we'll be back here next Tuesday. You guys have a great rest of your week and best of luck in your leagues. Take care. Bye-bye.